Hey folks, thanks for stopping by and checking out the Business Line podcast. In this show, what we're trying to do is get in front of people all over the country, all over the world that are moving and shaking in business, whether they're a part of a big business or they're starting something from the ground up. We want to get to know them. We want to get to know their journey, their struggle, and a little bit about what they love in life. We hope you check out every episode you can. Hey, welcome everybody to the BLP. I'm your host, Brian Collins, and fantastic guest with us today. Been so excited once I heard from Matt, our producer, that we're going to be joined by Jonathan Shroyer. I just kind of dug in. Jonathan, hope you don't think it's too weird that I kind of watched some of your videos and did a little bit of stalking online, but I wouldn't call myself a closet video game kind of guy, but we're probably similar ages, plus or minus a couple of years on either side. And we probably grew up in the same type of, lifestyle kind of when it comes to things we did as kids. And so that stuff's always there, but you're doing a lot of different things. I just want to share with the audience real quick some of the things to kind of plant the seed. So Jonathan Shroyer, AI and gaming advisor at iQor and co-founder of Quimbi, something we're going to do a little bit of talking about today, which I'm excited about. iQor is a trusted partner in full lifecycle smart and CX solutions, delivering exceptional results for global brands. Quimbi is a super agent AI that delivers 6x productivity for gaming studios. That sounds amazing. I could use some 6x productivity probably everywhere. Also, AI and marketing advisor for Shannon Fabrics, Special Product Sales Inc., Linda's Electric Quilters, as a two-time founder and current leader at Quimbi. He's big on pushing boundaries, using AI and delivering multiples in productivity for studios. Also of note, Mahatma Gandhi Medal of Honor winner. Love to find out how that happens. And Wall Street Journal Lifetime Achievement Award. And from what I hear, many, many more. Everybody, thanks so much for joining us for a little conversation with Jonathan. Jonathan, thanks for sitting through that. I know it can be hard to listen to someone kind of edify you and stuff like that. It gets me a little outside of my skin when people do that to me. But thanks so much for joining the show. And hey, let's get started. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
No, thanks for the opportunity, man. I appreciate the kind words. I think everyone in their own way through their life has their own journey and their own successes and, pushes themselves in different ways. And I've had that opportunity. So I think first and foremost, I'm a dad. My son calls me Papa.
So I like that.
Yeah, he's 4 years old. So I thought I knew life, and then I had a child, and now I've learned that I'm in the third grade.
Oh yeah.
So outside of that, I've just really I'm interested in building, scaling, and learning. Those have always been my three kind of ever since my 20s, things that were super interesting to me. And I I have autism, and I often find like with video games, it was really helpful with my autistic, neurodivergent nature growing up. And so I naturally gravitated towards that. But also I find like with my autism, I have to train myself to be social and emotional, where I innately start to be thinking about problem solving and create, what's new, what's fresh, and especially on the technology side. And so it's natural that AI and analytics and other things are like second nature to me. And so I'm always thinking about like every day, like, okay, how do I refine that? How do I improve that? How do I make that better? And what's the latest technology? What's the latest opportunity? So that's a little bit about me.
So how did you talked a little bit about kind of life in your 20s. How did you cut your teeth, to get started in the industry? Were you like getting done with school, getting a couple jobs, kind of moving into entrepreneurship? What's your story there?
No, it's a great question. So actually I lived in Utah for quite some time, which you might live in Utah based off of your hat.
No, it's funny. I went to Utah about a year and a half ago, had a client out there, and everywhere I go, try to get some stuff from there for my family and me. Yeah. And, I'm a colors guy, so I got shoes that kind of match the whole thing. So, but yeah, Utah Jazz. I like their logo too.
Yeah, that's the newer one. So I went to school in Utah, and then I cut my teeth after school at Microsoft for a good 10 years or so. I was in, I started on the phones doing customer service for Windows 95, which ages me a little bit. And cool. Then, the original Xbox, what was it? The Red Ray of Death or whatever.
Oh, the Red Ring of Death for that Xbox 360 debacle.
Yeah. So I was part of all that. And then I went into finance. I went into operations. I wandered into monster.com when it was a bigger thing in the world. And then I went, over to Europe, worked with Symantec. And then after kind of all those different adventures, my wife, said, hey, you've been in this, big tech environment that you continually get frustrated for the same reasons. Maybe you should go work up in the startup world. So then I was like, okay. So then I joined Postmates, which was a crazy high growth startup, and then decided just to do my own thing. So I've, started a few companies, exited 20, 30x returns for my investors. And so as you noted, I have lots of advisory roles from my experience and then my latest company. So that's a little bit where I cut my teeth.
So in those original adventures, as you just kind of labeled them, I like that. Were those of your own will, or were any of those kind of forced in those directions based on changes happening where you were? Or was it just kind of like, hey, it's time for something new?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, either you make decisions because you realize it's the right time, or the universe tells you it's the right time.
For sure.
And I would say it's 50-50. 50% of the time I was like, you know what? I think it's the right time. The other 50% of the time, the universe is like, yo, it's time to move. And I think the ones that the universe forced me, I think comes in the form of layoffs. And because I'm more of I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to make this work. I'm going to create 10x value. Like I'm not a failure kind of thing. I worry less about that now in my 40s, but in my 20s, that was my mentality. And so it took like a layoff for me to be like, oh, wait a second. This wasn't working for like 6 months. Why was I continuing trying to make this work? Right. You get that in hindsight, not right when you get laid off. And so I think it's about half and half. But I think in all of the situations where, what I like to think is like Nelson Mandela has this great phrase, I never lose, I only win or learn. And so I look at it, was it a win or was it a learn? And I look at it in the context of, did it help me learn to become the person that I'm meant to become? Not the person I want to become, but I'm meant to become. I'm a big believer that the universe has a path for me. And if I kick against the path, the universe will let me know. But if I accept the universe and I accelerate and bring value to other people and my path, then the universe will provide more opportunities for me.
Yeah, I like that quote you use. It reminds me of one that I use when it comes to dealing with people in these type of entrepreneurial roles and business ownership, whether it's people that I bring into the company or people that I, want to partner with in a business situation. It's I don't like that person very much. I'm going to have to get to know them better. Right. It's it's that mental jujitsu you have to be willing to play on yourself to put yourself in the right position to, like you said, add value to somebody else. Right. Because, I learned a long time ago that it's important to be willing to add or to give without any expectation of receipt for long enough for that receipt to make its way back to you. So
that's right.
Very, very, very good. So, and that, what you were getting into a little bit there towards your, the end of your adventures, kind of bringing you to where you are now, makes me want to talk a little bit about kind of what you're doing with Quimbi and everything that's about, because I know a lot of folks and I've heard about it in passing and just keeping up with game studio industry and stuff like that. And you talked about in your adventures of life and career, sometimes being laid off and what that made you do mentally, as opposed to just kind of getting, plowed underfoot and backing off and saying, it's just the way it is, using that as a reason and an excuse to get back on that path that, like, as you said, the universe was kind of escorting you down, right? So in this case, layoffs are all over the software and gaming industry right now. It's happening every couple of months. You get a news story about somebody's laid somebody off. And, over the years, this is kind of what happens, the ebbs and flows of business bubbles in this space. Like something happened that causes these businesses to grow and take advantage of that marketplace. Well, that marketplace eventually, let's say, pops. And then you've got this kind of fold down. Well, right now, there's a kind of a human battle with AI, I would say. And people, what I hear a lot about, I don't know that I necessarily agree with it, is that AI is causing job loss, right? It's causing the layoff. I haven't seen that in the world I live in yet. It's more, the angle that I try to take is how do we leverage AI to get a person that I have on the team to be able to 10x their value, right? So what's the way without, because there is inherent value in the people that we have on our teams, but how can they leverage AI in a way to be able to do more with what they have, right? So talk a little bit about Quimby, how you came into kind of getting it started and where you guys are at now and what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I love your perspective. I think it's really important for people to realize at a macro level, think AI first, and how can that 10x you as a professional.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of folks are either anti-AI or slow to adopt AI, or some folks are just all in, right? Maybe too much. And it's creating quality integrity issues. And so I think it's really important to understand that 10x accelerator. And I think like the way that I think about Quimby is all throughout my career. So let's say before Quimby, the 25 years I worked, I brought whether it was cost savings or revenue monetization, I created about $1 billion of value for all the companies that I've worked for, either my own companies or other companies. And those companies spent about $100 million, to acquire that $1 billion of value, right? And so I think that when I created Quimby, I saw a huge opportunity to take that general ethos of 10x acceleration and make it more commonplace for the everyday worker. So rather than these large companies getting significant value from that 10x mantra, it's now available and accessible to every human being on the planet that's willing to engage with it and do a little bit of research to understand how they can differentiate themselves and make themselves either 10x more valuable to their current employer, or even give them the courage to finally say, hey, I've had this idea. I want to start it on the side and see if it can create 10x wealth for me. And then I don't need to depend on larger corporations anymore. And I don't have to worry about their ebbs and flows because I'm going to invest and I'm going to believe in me. So that was kind of the mantra behind Quimby.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I created Quimby, I focused in on the video game space, which ironically is kind of parlayed into e-commerce and a few other areas accidentally. But when I created it, eventually it was this idea, like, the user story I had was, how do I create a super agent that can 6x the productivity of any player support or community person inside of a gaming studio? And then at the same time, how does that 6x in productivity create 50% increase in monetization or revenue for that video game company? So that was the user story that I created. And when at Officium Labs, my last startup, I did that same similar type of thing. I did 2 or 3x productivity increase, 10% monetization, but it's all based off of human capital, process, and services. And so I focused this on a hyper-personalized product that can scale for video game companies. And so that's where I came up with Quimby. We've got like 7 customers now. We launched in May. And, it's been super successful, like I said, in the gaming space, as well as we now organically have had lots of e-commerce clients reach out to us, hospitality clients, fantasy sports. But again, the main focus is, how do I create that 6x productivity? How do I create 50% increase in LTV? And if you can do that, then you're going to be able to help any company differentiate themselves from all their competitors and handle the ebbs and flows more effectively.
So if you could walk me through situationally how Quimby does that in that particular focus in that space.
Yeah. So imagine you're a video game publisher, and let's say you have a game with 1 million players that play the game on a daily basis. So a game that I used to play a lot that I liked was called Marvel Contest of Champions.
Okay.
If you've ever played mobile video games, sometimes you throw the phone because you're angry. Sometimes you don't. It's normal human psychology. You get frustrated.
Hey, that's a lot more expensive than throwing your Nintendo controller back in the day. I used to do terrible things to my controller. Maybe that's why I never got into mobile gaming, because I knew that sucker would be in rough shape. I would need one heck of a case. Anyway.
But you got 1 million players, and those players probably spend, let's just say for this example, $1 a day. It's not really, it's not equal across all players, but let's say $1 a day. Now imagine that those 1 million players, it probably cost you to support those 1 million players through customer service, say just for just to keep it simple, $100,000, right? So imagine if you were able to look at all of the data sources that a support agent has to look at today, and there's like 6 or 7 of them in any game studio, and you create a single interface where that gaming support agent can go in and get all of the information in one place and have an AI pre-write their response, hyper-personalized, based off of the gameplay, the Jira bug system, GitHub, the dev system, the KB, externally, what's going on Reddit. Imagine all that's in one place and that's hyper-personalized and the AI writes the response. Then the human then gets to look at it and say, yeah, I agree with it, or let me edit it a little bit. And also imagine that AI can identify fraud. It has the ability to identify compensation mechanisms that you should provide to the player to get them to get back to the game and playing, offers that you should give to the player. So all of that happens simply and easily on the back end. And that customer support agent now just looks at the interface and says, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So what that does, interestingly enough, is that engagement gets decreased. So it might take 10 minutes to support a player in the past. Well, with Quimby, it takes 2 minutes or 3 minutes, right? So you dramatically increase the amount of customers that an agent can engage with on a day-to-day basis. 2, that's hyper-personalized, so the player feels like it's fully customized to them and their game and what's happening and so forth. And then the outcome of those 2 things is you get a decrease in cost optimization, which makes it easier for you to scale from a revenue and profitability standpoint, is keeping the same kind of high-quality customer service, player support folks. And then secondarily, because you're getting back to the players immediately, because it's hyper-personalized, because you're providing them compensation that they need to get them back to playing the game, then that million players that are making $1 a day, so $1 million a day for you, is now making 1.25 million for you. So an increase of 250,000, but the cross structure to support 1.25 million isn't 100,000 anymore, it's 50,000. And so you get this knock-on effect where you get to save 40 to 50% on the cost side, and you get to increase revenue, which any company that I've engaged with, they want to make more money, and they want to make more money and spend less money. And then in the video game space, which may or may not be known to your listeners, is that there's massive spikes in volume, which is very difficult to handle. And so the AI also helps you to do that without having to hire lesser skilled support agents to handle that, which then it becomes a less effective experience for those players. And so it solves for that problem too.
Okay. So let me make sure I've got this right. You've got this AI agent, Quimby, and in essence, you're giving that agent access to, let's say, the player account, which can tell you how many hours a day, week, month, year that player has spent. Analyze, are they on an incline? Are they on a decline? Are they on a plateau? Are they stagnant? Are they in valley peak? Whatever. Also, like you said, access to bug data and statistics and content data and statistics and all these other things. And when that player interfaces with support, asks a question or gives a concern or complaint or whatever, that AI can then feed the customer support agent the data that they need quickly in order to make the best interaction possible back fast with that player or that user.
That's right. The best and hyper-personalized, which is a key component, because most players complain. The video game companies don't know who they are and don't care about them. Yeah, and so this gives the impression that they do care about them because it's hyper-personalized.
Well, that is cool. I can think of, my head just, again, I don't know if, we're very parallel and similar. I've never been, told that I was autistic or anything, but I got a feeling that I am just by nature. I don't know how that even works, but I can tell you that immediate in listening to you, my mind is going, how could this apply to what I do with my team, with my people, and from a support standpoint? Because I know we're interfacing and collecting and amassing all kinds of data throughout the day by serving our clients and supporting our clients and interacting on a customer service level. And we're whether if it's in meetings now, everything is recording, everything's transcribed, everything is kind of put in a place. But the mere fact that we're able to grab so much information on a daily basis now, there's no possible way that one person or 2 people or however many versus all the things they're doing has the time, energy to be able to put the effort in to get all that and make sense of it and apply it in a valuable way, right? So I can see, how did you come about? Was it kind of your background in customer service over the years that kind of connected the dots for you? Because in listening to you and hearing about this, the dots get connected for me, but I would have never connected those dots not having this conversation with you. So how did you arrive at this point?
So I've looked at probably 1 million different data points in my life in customer service, in gaming, and technology. And I naturally, without AI, see trends. And I'm a systems thinker. So I naturally can look at, what's inside the system and how do you coordinate those system components to create a better valuable output of the system. And I think sometimes it gets me in trouble because, like I said, I'm not the most social emotional guy. I do my best, and I train myself how to interact in a society that, requires social emotional connection for most of the neurotypical individuals. And I have a lot of respect and value for those people. But for me, myself, I see things differently. And so I don't look at problems at an individual level. I look at them at a systemic level. And so the systemic problem that I found was that, companies are losing a ton of money because they don't know how to engage in a hyper-personalized way. And so you'd have the easiest way for me to explain this to people is when you look in your house, you've got the internet modem, right? The router that's plugged into all the wires. And then you have the mesh points. Most houses now have mesh points or extenders as they're called. And so you can look at a system as that's a system. You've got your hub and then you've got your spokes. And if you go around the house and your spokes aren't working, what do? You get anger. You get frustrated. So now imagine like at a hyper macro scale, that's your business. And the hub's working really well, but the nodes aren't working really well. And well, why aren't the nodes working well? Well, in video games, most of the nodes are your players. And if your players aren't working well, then there's a reason why. And if you don't understand why, then you're just going to lose that node. And that's going to decrease the overall validity and value of your system. And eventually your system will shut down if you can't figure out how to address the weaknesses in your system. And so by using the LLM models, you can more quickly and more effectively and accurately identify the meshed problems inside of your network and quickly fix them to strengthen them and to eliminate value or send value bidirectionally to those nodes and back to the main hub. And so that's kind of the way that I naturally thought about it, is from my natural systems point of view.
Interesting. As a company like us, I run a managed service company. So we do a couple different types of managed services for small and medium-sized businesses, right? So we're taking things that companies could be doing themselves and offloading that onto us so that they can get along with and spend more time doing the revenue generating things within their company, right?
That's right.
So the challenge that we have is very similar. Like our nodes are our clients and individual people in those companies that need the support that we provide. That could be IT, that could be revenue generating activities that we do for medical offices. It could be documentation generating services that we do for a doctor, right? But it needs to be, the quality needs to be great, the support, and the efficiency. And that's where I find it's tough for a company like us. So when I think about these kind of things, one of the things I'm trying to figure out is how do I get to where we need to be as a company. My business partner and I having a conversation about this a little bit before the show started. In fact, he wanted to jump on a meeting and talk more, but I got to talk with Jonathan. But how do we get to a point where per employee, we can look at our total revenue and say we're at 200 to 250K per employee, right? Because we're not there. We're well below that, which makes the business of doing business much more difficult, right? And scaling and growth, it slows it all down. So how do we get there? And there's levers to pull, right? There's pricing levers. There's the levers of efficiency and then the quality of the work that you're doing, right? And one of the things I think we struggle in is the efficiency. I think we're people heavy, and I love people, but either at the number of people we have, we need to be able to support much more revenue, much more clientele, or vice versa. At the clientele we need to be able to do a high degree of work more efficiently with less people. And I think that's what you find with layoffs and things in the industry, where you see that happens. Like we're generating this, and it's unpredictable because the wind could blow a different direction in a gaming community, and everybody starts playing your game, and then the winds shift, or another game comes out and grabs that whole community away, and they're gone, right? So I can definitely see how what you're doing can make a huge impact. You said you're working with about 7 or so clients now. Are you able to share anybody that you work with and what it's like working with them?
Well, I mean, I think I can share kind of the general thesis of the clients. I can't share their names, but so in gaming, well, first of all, before I jump into that, can I answer your other question that you asked, but not directly? Yeah. So like if I was in your position and not knowing the full gamut of your client base, the one thing that I would think through is if you can influence your clients to give you access to their database, and you have access to all wherever the activities are performed, whether it's a CRM or whatever, then you easily have the ability, whether it's with Quimbi or with a similar type solution, you easily have the ability fairly quickly to understand, like, well, which of these tasks can be automated or semi-automated, or can assist my team, where the AI can assist my team to drive greater value. Like you mentioned a couple of things where annotation and other services, already exist today that, would quickly, supersize your team's 10x value. But so there's some interesting things there where when you mentioned the 3 levers, those have been the same 3 levers for the last 100 years, right?
Yeah.
And so it's about, well, underneath those 3 levers, how are we using innovation to be a differentiator with those levers? And I think that's also one of the reasons why we created Quimbi, is because everybody was doing the same things with those 3 levers in our space. And so we're like, well, how do we do it different? How do we do it better? How do we disrupt it? And so that was kind of the impetus behind it. So the clients specifically, we have large gaming clients. I downloaded a game last night. I play this game all of the time. Every year I downloaded it. It's a basketball game that I love. And I play it probably too much. And since I have a 4-year-old, I play it less.
Basketball game. There aren't that many basketball games out there because the quality of a certain company's basketball game exceeded everybody else's and basically put them out of business.
That's pretty much it. So
without saying who they are, I think we know who they are. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So no, they're someone that we're working with. They're not a client yet, but we're in conversations with them. And then we have other clients that that are smaller startups that are trying to figure out, like, how do I differentiate? How do I use AI to grab market share from the big guys? And then you have other kind of more well-known, behemoths in the industry that we're engaging with some of their sub studios because they have an R&D department and they're trying to figure out, well, what's next? What's great? Like, we should try something out and see what we think. And then you kind of got these mid-sized companies as well. So it kind of goes across the gamut of those types of companies. But all in all, the general use case is the same around the 10x value, 6x productivity, LTV. But then the use cases, so we have different super agents. So one is Super Agent Engage, which is the player support, customer support one. Okay. So most all the clients are interested in that one. We have another one called Super Agent LiveOps, where we help them monetize their players more effectively. This works really well in digital currency types of situations like gaming, and e-commerce, because you can monetize daily or weekly off of that. And then we have others that are using Super Agents Insights, where basically everybody inside their company becomes a junior BI analyst with our Super Agent Insights interface. So there may be a slightly different use cases what different companies want. And of course, there's always going to be the age-old question, well, do they build or do they buy? And we find about 75% of companies, maybe 70% of companies say, we'll buy. 30% say, hey, we'll build. And then they go and build, and about half of those 30% say, okay, we'll buy because it's too hard to build.
Oh, yeah.
So those are some of the interesting things that, that we've kind of engaged with. But what's been most interesting, I think, with most of the gaming companies is they really want to figure out hyper-personalization at scale, because they know that that's the silver bullet that nobody has been able to solve. And that's the silver bullet that Quimby helps solve.
Yeah, I think we hear about all the time, and I can't really think of anybody off the top of my head, but I hear about all the time of hyper-personalized cases where a company goes above and beyond and just nails it for one of their customers. And you might hear about it on like a viral YouTube video, or, hey, something really took care of me because this happened and they found out right away and they fixed it and it was amazing. I'm so happy. But the other 100 people are forgotten, right? And they don't get that same level. And if you hit it dead on the head. It's interesting because I'm old enough to remember a time when there was no such thing as monetization in video gaming. There's always, gaming in general has always been like, the only monetization was that initial purchase, right? And then it kind of rolled into MMOs and monthly monetization, and then rolled into adding content ad nauseum based, because you had the technology to do it. Now everything just wasn't stuck on a disc or stuck on a cartridge. You could just add it as needed, and you could start to attach money to those things. And I've always, it's funny with certain things, I'm a Mr. Cheapo. And I was talking about this the other day in gaming. I'm a wait for the sale kind of guy now. When I was in my 20s and I had no money, I was like in line buying the things, right? And paying for everything. But I've changed that. But I know I have no illusions to think that my use case is where the money is these days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The growth in gaming the last 10, 15, 20 years or so has been in bringing people in that instead of just one transaction every month or a couple a year, it's daily transactions of little bites of nuggets, and you get millions of people to do that. And they can still afford it. You're not killing them. You're not putting them under a rock and making them go into debt, but you do, like you said, at scale. And to be able to support those people, because the more you do it, the more issues you're going to have. It's just a numbers game at that point.
Yeah.
All those things.
And I think a lot of folks don't realize that gaming is 6 times the size of Hollywood.
Yeah. And it's been bigger than the movie industry for a long time.
Yeah. But most people, when I tell them that, they get surprised. But no, it's huge.
Yep. And when if I talk to my son, who's 14, it doesn't surprise him, right? Because he spends more time engaging with games than he does with TV media, right?
Mm-hmm.
But us, that maybe that generation X and above, maybe a little bit into the generation right after us, we're still, because we grew up engaging with games, but it was still about sitcoms and going to the movies and getting a DVD and renting for Blockbuster and then eventually Netflix. But we're still, is all about watching, not necessarily interacting. But everything's in our hands now. So now Quimby sounds amazing. And I'm excited to keep track and see how you explore other verticals, because I think you've definitely got room to grow. In gaming, it's such a huge space. You're hitting on big players now, medium players, small players, and the success they have is just going to travel like ripples, right, in a pond.
Totally.
But we're getting a little short on time. A couple other things I wanted to chat with you about, because I just like to have a little fun and like to learn a little bit more about the folks that we're with. What are some things when I know you've done quite a few shows like this and you get out promoting your company and what you're doing. I think that's fantastic. What are some things that you wish you got to talk about, maybe one thing that you usually don't get to talk about that you wish folks would maybe kind of bring up that you'd like to share about yourself?
It's a good question. Yeah. I mean, I think that a lot of times, podcasts are really focused on the business side. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important. So on Facebook every day, I just do a little post.
Okay.
And it's just like an inspirational post.
Very cool.
And it's always about 3 lines. And I just write something up that I think hopefully will be helpful. And I send it out to the universe. And sometimes it's about hope. Sometimes it's about faith. Sometimes it's about courage. Sometimes it's about grit. I mean, it's just different. But the goal of these posts is to realize that we're all on a journey. And different people are at different parts of their own journey. And no one's really on the same journey, right? We're all on our own journey. But there are similarities to some of our journeys. And I think it's just important to remember that if you unpack everything that you've been through in your life, whatever it is, just imagine that I've been through something similar, that it may not be the same thing, and the person next to me has been through something similar, like whether you're neurotypical, neurodivergent, whether you've had to deal with abuse, whether you've had not to deal with abuse. There's all kinds of, whether you had to go to war, you didn't go to war. There's all kinds of different things that people go through. And the thing that I really love about Nelson Mandela is, when he was in that prison, he never lost the hope. He never lost the belief in himself, And I think that if my little posts every day can just help people, grasp onto a little bit more of tomorrow is going to be a better day. I just have to believe it, and it will happen. The universe will show me if I believe it, and I'm thoughtful and I'm smart and I learn, then I'm going to eventually win, and never to give up. So I think that's something that I always strive to help people, not directly, but indirectly.
Yeah, you know what, Jonathan, it sounds like you have a great positive mental attitude, and I could really respect that. I think a lot of people struggle with that because the world can be a pretty abusive place, right? It can be pretty gritty. It can be pretty abrasive, right? And I heard years back somebody said a saying, nobody famous, nobody that anybody would really know, but they said they apply this to a lot of the things they do. They say methods are many, principles are few, methods change, principles never do. So when you're talking about life, I generally view the methods we use to approach our journeys. Yeah, the journeys are different, but we're all in this thing called life, right? We're all living from beginning to end, and we all have different ways of getting through it. But I believe there's a principled path through the middle of there. And, you're right. It can be rough, and you can get knocked down, and you can take, there's all types of different perspectives that we can take right through life. But it's hope is huge. Hope is huge. You mentioned that. That's that one word you mentioned. I really stick on, because they say, like, we can go so long without food. We can go so long without water. We can go so long without shelter, but you can't make it a moment without hope, because once you give up on hope, you're giving up on everything. That's when you're saying all is lost, and there's no reason anymore. So, yeah, I think that's a fantastic perspective to have, Jonathan.
Yeah, I appreciate that. There's a Dr. Amen from the Amen Clinics. He has this philosophy called ANTS, and it stands for automatic negative thoughts. And as human beings, we have automatic negative thoughts. And if you've ever understood the psychology of reaction and response, is like, if I were to do something, if I were to hit your arm right now, you're actually not responding to me hitting your arm. Your body predicts what your response will be based off of the last 7 times somebody hit your arm.
Sure.
And so changing your mindset and changing how you think about those automatic negative thoughts will change how you approach life and how you think about the tragedies, the difficulties that will hit you. Everybody will have them. So it's your mindset and how you think about not letting those automatic negative thoughts have too much time on your stage, so that then you can retrain your mindset to, if I hit you, rather than immediately hitting me back, which is a normal human response, you might be like, I wonder why he hit me. Maybe I should ask him. And then it becomes a dialogue of, hey, dude, why did you hit me? I thought we were friends, rather than just an automatic response. And so I think that's an interesting thing. Like, if you train your mind to believe in hope and to trust in hope, then what will be automatic to you will become hope as opposed to despair.
Yeah, that's whether it's like we started out talking with losing a job and a layoff, or you just talked about getting hit or something negative happening to you. I try to teach this to my kids a lot, especially my older ones, because they can internalize this and kind of battle with this. But it's tough, because what I always teach them is anything that happens, whether it was technically or fully or a little bit, whether it's your fault or not, you need to figure out a way to make the decision to make it your fault. Take responsibility. It's the only way you have control of changing things, right? If someone came in here and stole all our business equipment, or hacked us, or did all the things that can be bad, or if this whole thing fell apart, if I said it was all external stimuli that made it happen, then I can do nothing moving forward to A, avoid it again, or B, make things any better. But if I can, even if it's somewhat manufactured internally, say, this is what I could have done, this is what I didn't do, this is what I need to do better to avoid that the next time. And I'll say, even if you got to go layers, son, he'll say, but it wasn't my fault. I didn't do anything. Okay. You were involved, right? Okay. Yeah, you were involved. Okay. You said something. It wasn't bad. He took it the wrong way. He smacked you or he took your toy or whatever. But what if you would have never have done that? Even though he shouldn't have done what he did, but what if you could have changed the way you interacted from the beginning? You can't change the past, but you can change it next time.
That's right. That's right.
So,
that's right.
And it's really, I was in my 30s before I realized this, right? Because this isn't what we're taught. This isn't how we're socially, brought along to deal with things. We're kind of taught to point the finger, get rid of that thing, and then move on, and that'll solve the problem. But
yeah, totally agree.
Well, this has been great. This has been actually more than great, Jonathan. I'm always amazed when I meet new folks on the show and bring them in and give them a chance to share and just listen and learn. And this has been no different. I really appreciate all your time. I wish you the greatest success with Quimbi and everything else you're doing. Keep putting things forward into the world to bring more value and better production, because it does make a difference in a bunch of different ways.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and get to know you a little better. And hopefully your listeners will find something valuable, but I appreciate the time, man.
You bet. Let's make sure and connect and stay in touch over these next few months and even years, and we'll see where our paths cross again, my friend.
100.